Thanks a lot for coming to our March meeting. We have a lot planned for today, and we definitely want to make sure everybody gets, we get through everything, and then we can all get on with this gorgeous Colorado morning. With that, we're going to move on to the land and equity acknowledgements. I will read these today. I can move this over here. Great. As residents of Colorado, we stand on the unceded ancestral lands of the Arapaho, Cheyenne, Lakota, and Ute nations and peoples. These lands were also a site of trade, gathering, and healing for numerous other indigenous tribes. We recognize Native and indigenous peoples as the original stewards of this land and our presence among their descendants who still dwell within it. We pay our respects to indigenous and Native elders, past and present. Equity acknowledgement. We acknowledge that racial justice, equity, and climate justice are inextricably intertwined, and that the poor, vulnerable, and primarily Black, Indigenous, and people of color disproportionately bear the burden due to the lingering effects of systemic discriminatory practices. We commit to doing our part to ensure that when taking any action to create a sustainable future, we will respect, promote, and consider our respective obligations concerning all aspects of equity and strive to create systems in which everyone can thrive. Right. Oh, I'm glad are we recording? We need to make sure we are recording. If you're the host. Yeah. So just, nope, I think you are. Well.
Recording or progress.
Yeah, recording is perfect. Yeah, everybody, you need to mute. Yeah, speakers. Great. Okay. Great. Thanks everybody again for coming. And I just want to, this is a really great turnout. And we've had 3 meetings. This is our 3rd meeting of the year now. And we had, I believe, about 65 people that participated in our January meeting. I think we had over 80 between in-person and online in our February meeting. And, just this is an incredible turnout here. It's Mulcrete, and I don't know how many people we have online, but I think this is really saying a lot about INC and neighborhoods and people's passion for neighborhoods and community here in Denver. So I just thank you all for taking, I know what is a gorgeous morning and coming here and spending some time with your neighbors. So just to kind of go through some INC business before we have our presentation in a little bit. Yeah. And if there's anything that pops up in the chat. Steve here. Great. So we're ending, as we talked about earlier, or in the past 2 meetings, INC has done this big switch back to a membership model where we only have 1 renewal date for the year, which actually makes it a lot easier for all the volunteers on the back end here trying to do memberships for INC. So our renewal date is April 1st, and we've been working towards that. We've got, I think, about 42 registrations so far and renewals, and we've got, I think, about 10 or 12 folks that haven't renewed yet from last year, and we're still obviously always working on getting more folks to join INC from different neighborhoods around Denver. But we have a new registration portal online. It's, the feedback we've gotten is that it's very easy to use and a very quick registration. We still are accepting checks this year. However, we prefer online if you can do any registration payments with your, with credit card. Makes it just a lot easier for folks on the back end. But we definitely still accept checks if that's what your organization needs to do. So moving on. And we are, this is our programming calendar kind of for the year that we set up at our board retreat back in December. We are, we're plowing away through this. So we are, we had a little bit of a change this month with our programming. We are going to end up doing programming on scams and watching out for that in May, hopefully. And today we have a really exciting program on affordable housing in Denver that we're just really stoked to do. So and then next month, we have a cannabis forum that Mark and Ann are helping to lead about a really cool program we're going to talk about, where some of the regulatory things are, I think, with cannabis. And then, Mark, if you have anything else you want to add about that.
No, it's
Okay.
we're going to try to focus on the attributes of some of these businesses to getting more involved in the RNOs that are in their neighborhoods, both financially and actively. So that's what we're going to try to see if excise license and their process and dovetail in encouraging those businesses to be good community stewards.
That's great. So thanks a lot for putting that together. And then, just moving through the rest of the year, we're very excited. I'll talk in a little bit. We have the Film Fest coming up in June. July, we'll probably try to do an online meeting again in summer during the week. And then we have our RNO 101, which we're really trying to gear up for, putting a good couple of programs together to really figure out what RNOs need and what kind of information we can provide. So, how about some updates from committees? Zoning and planning, Joel one or Joel?
Yeah, and we don't have we don't have many updates other than the fact that we will have another meeting in May. And we will, yeah, we just had a really productive meeting. We actually co-hosted with Chun's in Capitol Hill United Neighborhoods. We both had monthly meetings coming up, and we thought, it would be really cool to join forces. And we got together at the Tiers McFarland Historic House. This is overlooking Cheeseman Park. We had some great speakers. So Jill Locatori from Denver Streets Partnerships, she talked about parking reform, namely parking maximums. We had Ryan Keeney, who's the president of YIMBY. He basically gave an overview of 2025 upcoming legislative bills. So things like the single staircase bill. A lot of households or apartment complexes right now can't rent out because they have a single staircase. And sometimes there are strict requirements that there should be 2 staircases. So that's just one example of how we can really increase housing supply. So he spoke to matters related to those bills. We also had Representative Clifford come to speak about CDARA reform, so construction defects, which is a big barrier to entry housing development. So we're hoping to have another really great lineup for our next meeting. We have noticed there's kind of a lack of responsiveness when it comes to our email list. Not everyone we believe that would like to be on it is on it. So we'll try to send something out with that list, or if you want to be on it and you're not sure you are, just come to me after and I'll make sure that you're signed up. So for that list, if you're on it, we'll be sending out the upcoming dates for our upcoming meeting along with our perspective agenda.
Great, thanks a lot. Joel?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Joel Noble, I chair the Transportation Committee. We're on our regular schedule of the second Thursday of odd-numbered months. That's coming up next week, Thursday the 13th, 6 to 8 p.m. via Zoom. You can find the link to the Zoom meeting on the Denver INC website. We have 4 great speakers lined up. The first pertains to light rail. When we first built light rail in Denver, we were following in Portland's footsteps, and we used the same vehicles that Portland used, which are high floor. If you've ridden the light rail, you have to climb up those quite steep, quite narrow stairs. And what we didn't do is, when several years later, Portland started introducing low floor, where it's just a single easy step on with a little bridge plate if you wanted to roll something on, like a wheelchair or a buggy. We never did that. So RTD is finally studying that. They did an RFP for consultants who have helped other systems convert from high floors and low floor. And we'll be hearing from the project manager of that. Secondly, we have the Denver Department of Finance talking to us about the new Vibrant Denver bond programs. These are general obligation bonds that will be proposed to voters in November. I suspect that this administration is going to use a different process than has been used before. Previously, there were a lot of committees of residents who help select which projects go into the bond. I don't know for sure, but they seem to be wanting to have community meetings and then the city will simply decide, but we'll find out. Our meeting will probably be a short update on this and probably focused on what's known about the transportation element. But do look at Denver's website for Vibrant Denver Bonds, because this coming week, there will be, since one for District 10, and then there are several the following week, conversations in the community with Department of Finance and the mayor's staff about the bond program. Third topic is the Denver bike map. In 2024, there was a big effort to completely redo the forward-looking bike map. How will bike facilities be built out, including the introduction of a new concept of a core network, as well as all the others of the normal bike lanes and protected bike lanes. So we'll hear from the project manager of that, about how that wrapped up, what were the main things that were decided, what are the general big moves we're looking at over the next decade. And finally, we'll hear from leadership at the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure on a number of current topics. I've asked if they'd be willing to address some things that are in the news that maybe are a little controversial, like what's going on with First Fridays on Santa Fe. They said they'd be willing to talk about that. So four good topics, please tune in.
Great, thanks so much, Joel. LaMone, DEI work?
Good morning. My name is LaMone Noles. I'm with the DEI committee. And this year we're going to focus on doing outreach to existing RNOs and also community organizations to kind of build up our base and the interest for what we're doing, because the next 4 years is going to be no joke. A lot of the community organizations don't even know what RNOs are. Nor do they understand that they have more power than they think as people. So that's going to be the focus of the DEI committee. If you have any suggestions or want to help us, please let me know. Thank you.
Thanks, Mom. All right, Jane?
Hello. It's so nice to see a bunch of people out this morning, wanting to know about their neighborhoods and sharing ideas. It's been a while since we've all been together a lot, and I really appreciate you being here. Once again this year, I've been asked and I've agreed to help coordinate the INC Youth Civic Engagement Awards. The Interneighborhood Cooperation invites Denver-based youth groups that do neighborhood civic and community projects to help apply for a grant to help them in those efforts. $500 and $1,000 award will be given for activities that will occur prior to September 15th of this year. A minimum of one grant will be awarded to a youth group that is a designated neighborhood equity and stabilization nest area. These awards inspire 14 to 19-year-olds to take an active role in their communities, recognizing how their efforts can create positive, lasting change. By supporting youth engagement, INC is cultivating Denver's future neighborhood leaders. So I have a committee. LaMone is going to be on the committee to review the grants, along with Pam Giner and Ann White from Montbello 2020, Amber Clark with College View, and Jim Grieving with Overland Park. So the grants are due April 21st. We're going to make the allocations in May, and then the project needs to be done by the middle of September. It's a very simple application. You can apply online. I also have the letter that explains how you do that. So if you're working with a youth group, or if you know someone in your neighborhood that is working with a youth group, I encourage you to ask them to apply. $500 for some of these small organizations can really get a good change for them. So I'll hand out these, and I'll hand out this. And
Jane, I threw in a surprise slide this morning. So this is last year's award winners. I don't know if you want to talk about any of these. You know, I know the consumption leadership project.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I was talking to Austin with the consumption literacy group that does the Spiral Garden, and all of those kids were at the awards ceremony last year. And she told me afterwards, she said, those kids were so excited. that they were recognized for what they've done. So the fact that we're recognizing them and they're doing work in their community, just to help them realize that what they do can impact the people around them, I think it's really cool. And we were gonna have the group from the Whittier neighborhood come and present their plan at a couple of our meetings, and it got scrapped because other things happened at the meeting. But they've done some really great work in their neighborhood, as all of these have. So it's just a way to get young people to realize that what they're doing has a greater impact than beyond themselves. So I'll hand these out, and thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Jane. And if anybody wants to be involved with this, anyone online or here in person, please reach out and let us know. We would be more than happy to send you to Jane. And we're really trying to build some capacity in this group so we make sure that these awards keep going.
What's the deadline again? The grants are due April 21st.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a pretty simple form. It's an online form, pretty simple.
Yeah.
Great. Sorry, does the applying organization have to be a 501c3?
No,
Or it can
no.
just be to any.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Jane, for coming. We really appreciate it. All right, moving on. Let me see if we can get this to start. I know we showed this last month, but it was a little fuzzy. See if the audio, how the audio works.
This is Bob. Bob's a big fan of clubs. I belong to everything. That's my high school club. I'm telling them. And this is a film about why you should join one. How Bob discovered that the fate of America depends on it.
Harvard professor and award-winning writer Robert Putnam.
You've been described as the poet laureate of civil society.
Robert D. Putnam. Deepening our understanding of communities in America.
He made people pay attention to a concept that most people had never paid attention to.
Social capital, social capital, social capital, social networks have value. I'd like to call on Professor Putnam who gave us the concept of social capital. The number of people who go on this first date, the number of people who take part in community organizations, the level of trust and reciprocity in the community. The places that have better government are the places that have the longest of social networks. Your chances of dying over the next year are cut in half by joining one group. Holy law. Where'd you get the title? Now, I happened to run into a friend who owned a bowling, and he said, gosh, Bob, you don't know what you stumbled onto a major island prophecies in my industry, because although more Americans are bowling than prefer bowling's up in America, bowling leagues, bowling teams is off by about 60%. I think that reflects the nature of other people are going down. How many times last week did you go to church? Down. How many times did you go to a dinner? Down. How many times last week did you go to a club meeting? In barely a couple of decades, half all the civic infrastructure in America has simply vanished. It's equivalent to say half all the roads in America just disappeared.
Everyone has a feeling something's happening, but then he's done charts to actually show what's actually happening.
Representing the people's sense of mutual obligation, to their understanding of the common good, to their willingness to trust their neighbor. There's no longer going on because people are going alone. The vote doesn't alone, but you're familiar with that.
The activity may still be going on, but there's no social capital being built. That decreases the trust we have in one another. How lonely Americans are, how divided.
You know, you may have been onto something.
We have to see loneliness as a threat to our health security and to our overall national security.
We are trying something that hasn't been done, which is growing and sustaining a multiracial democracy.
Organization, connections with other people is the only way to get big change.
Democracy is in the ass. If it was just easy, you know, you should join, your kids should join, and if there's not an organization you want to join, create one.
Trying change history.
Great. Hopefully it worked this time. So we are going to be showing this film in June at the Holiday Theater in North Denver. It's a restored 100-year-old theater that is beautiful inside. It's gone through a lot of life. I think a few of us went over there last week to kind of walk through the venue again. And it's, it started off, I think it was called the Egyptian Theater, and then it became, at one point in time, it was a restaurant, and it was a church. So it's been a lot of things, but the Museum of Contemporary Art took it over several years ago and restored it. It's beautiful inside. It seats about 400 folks. And it's just a really great venue. So we're excited. We're going to be doing this, a film reception, a screening, and then we're going to do a post-film Q&A with the director and community leaders in Denver. And that's going to be June 12th. And we, put the word out to ask for co-hosts. And I thought, oh, maybe we'll get 10 or 15 co-hosts. So we have 30 co-hosts so far. So thank you to a lot of you who signed up as co-hosts for this event. And we are just going full steam ahead in trying to bring in more groups to be a part of this. What I think is really going to be a great night of community building. And really getting a chance for neighborhoods to connect with one another. So if you're interested in being a co-host, please contact us, either online or in person, and we can talk to you more about that. It's really, co-hosting is really pretty easy. First of all, you'll get featured on event materials with the local media, public officials, and speakers. We're going to recognize all the co-hosts individually that night. And we're going to provide space for co-hosts to bring materials if you want to advertise your organization. And then I think the biggest part of this is really to make this event yours and really invite your members to come to this event. Use it as an opportunity to have a social event for your group to come and gather with a bunch of people that really care about community in Denver. All we're asking is that organizations commit one volunteer for the event, either before and helping plan before or on the night of, and to help get the word out. We are asking for financial donations from folks and groups that feel like they can do that, but that's not a requirement to be a co-host. And I think that's been a good model for us so far. We've definitely gotten some donations, but we also understand that there's a big financial difference between different organizations. So Gertie.
What's the address in
It is, I think, 2644 32nd Avenue, or probably maybe West 32nd Avenue. It's right near North High School. It's on the corner of 32nd. Yeah. Is there any questions online or in person about this? Anything else? Is there anything? Great. Perfect. Okay, moving on. We've covered the Youth Awards, the Film Fest. Like I said earlier, we are getting ready for our second annual RNO 101 Lab in the fall. Folks, I think what we might do is send out like some type of small questionnaire on what people or RNOs need and are interested in finding out more information about to kind of shape what that might look like. It will be on the September 13th. We're still looking for a venue. If you have any great venues, that would be very helpful. We probably need a space that has a, kind of a main gathering area and a couple of smaller rooms or smaller spaces for breakouts. But if you have a venue that you would like to suggest, we are always happy to hear about venue options. So just a couple of other things for INC this year. We do have this outreach and events team, which is really just kind of a conglomeration of all the other kind of things we do outside of our regular board meetings. And we're always looking for folks that are interested in helping with lots of things or one thing in particular. We do have our annual awards celebration coming up, which is going to be our 50th anniversary award celebration in the fall. And we're definitely going to need some help putting that together. I think we're trying to kind of shape what that's going to look like now. But we really want to make it special for everyone that's obviously been around INC for a long time, and folks that are new as well, and to kind of connect the dots of the history with INC. So that's coming up. We have, we're going to be looking for, sponsorship and partners for that as well. So if you're interested in helping to reach out to partners around the city, that would be great. And I think that's all there. Oh, yep, we have just like we're doing this month, we at the Mulkery and how we did it last month in Cherry Creek. If your RNO is interested in hosting a monthly INC community connection, that would be great. I know we did it with the folks from Rosedale Harbor Gulch last year at a really great venue down in southwest Denver. So if anybody online or in person, if you would like to host an RNO, we will help by paying, $250 to RNOs. We will help fund that event. We'll help you find speakers or kind of connect with you on putting that together. If you're in the Nest neighborhood, we'll up to $300. So please contact us. We're always ready to connect with folks about that. And I think we've moved on to our elections.
All right.
Okay, this is the first election I'm running, so bear with me, folks. A little bit of this. Perfect. Is there any questions about anything?
No.
Okay. Great. And we're doing this hybrid as well, and so we're going to have to count votes online in person. Does everybody have one of these? If you're a delegate that you're voting, so we know.
Can I give some instructions?
Yeah. Do everything.
For those online who are delegates, it's great if you could put your, I have checked you all off and I think I've gotten everybody who is a delegate, even though it doesn't show up on your name. And what I'd like you to do is when it comes time for voting, if you can use in the React button on Zoom down at the bottom ribbon, the React button on Zoom, it has a raise hand feature. If you click on the heart, you should see the raise hand feature. When it comes time for voting, please click that raised hand and that will bring you up and make it easier for us to count the raised hands. And then lower your hand and then we'll go through the voting process. So for yays, nays, and abstentions.
Great.
For each of those. And hopefully that makes sense to people.
Yes.
There you go.
Let's see here.
And all right.
Great. I have let's see here. I have one thing I want to do here before we start, and that is just to say thank you to some people. And I asked these folks if they were going to be here, and I said I wanted to say thank you, but they all kind of refused and didn't want to thank you, but they're going to get it regardless. So we have 3 board members that are stepping off the board today, and I'm not very good. I had a lot of word salad when I just tried to freelance this stuff, so I wrote it down. But I do want to talk about our board members that are stepping off and what a contribution they've done to INC. And I just put a little math. I did a little math. So for 2 years on board service, we have our community meeting and then our board meeting every month. So that's 4 hours at least. And if you add up all the hours, those hours, that's over 100 hours of volunteer work that these folks have done for neighborhoods and community in Denver. I mean, just right there is amazing. But obviously, they've done a lot more than that. They've probably done 10 times that, those number of hours for volunteering for neighborhoods across Denver. And that's just for folks that have been on for 2 years. So I just want to say that how much we appreciate all the time that people have dedicated to this organization, but also just community and neighborhoods in general. The first person I think is Amber Kraska, and I don't think she's able to be here in person. I'm not sure if she's online. I think she was away today. But I just did want to read this, which is just Amber's from Harkness Heights Neighborhood Association. She's dedicated 2 years of service to the INC board, bringing with her a wealth of experience from one of Denver's most active RNOs. We've been incredibly fortunate to benefit from her passion and immense organizing skills. During her time on the board, Amber played a key role in organizing both our 2023 and 2024 annual awards celebrations. And she was the driving force behind the successful INC Art Fest, following last summer's RNO 101 lab. Additionally, she has been instrumental in revitalizing the beloved INC Zoning and Planning Committee. While she is stepping back from the board, Amber continues to co-chair the ZAP committee alongside Joel Cox. We want to extend our heartfelt thanks for all the time and energy Amber has dedicated to building community in Denver over the past 2 years. It's been truly invaluable. So thank you, Amber. Blue Raiders, Cherry Creek North, who made it here. I'm happy. Because, yes. Lou brought her incredible legal acumen to INC in 2021, starting with the daunting task of updating the group's bylaws. This task alone would have sent most folks running for the hills. However, this wasn't enough for her, and she decided to run for the board in March 2023. Since joining, she has worked on creating a cohesive INC operations manual, along with her current passion project, developing a useful how-to manual for registered neighborhood organizations, offering guidance on everything from forming an RNO to drafting good neighbor agreements. In addition to all this, she organized and hosted via CCNNA both a fall 2024 ballot forum with the League of Women Voters and Channel 8 TV, and our recent community meeting on Denver's new division of community empowerment. For all this, Lou, we are incredibly grateful for your dedication and invaluable contributions to Denver's neighborhoods. And I'd like to personally thank you for the numerous consultations and mentorship you provided to me for the last few years. So thank you. And finally, Greg. Greg has been our dedicated treasurer for 6 years or more. 5. Okay, that was close. Yeah. We've recognized and publicly thanked Greg a number of times over the last couple of years, and I think being somewhat introverted, I don't think he's really appreciated it. So, in lieu of sharing all his accomplishments, I'd like to share a quick story instead. You know, in the spring of 2023, as INC was emerging from a tough period and the challenges of COVID, I ran for president, and Greg, after many years of service as treasurer, was ready to step back. I asked Greg to stay on and manage our finances, and although he was reluctant, he agreed. Looking back, I truly believe his steady leadership over our financials has created the space for all of us to really focus on reinvigorating this 50-year organization and been a key factor in our rapid recovery. So Greg, thank you very much. You've more than earned your well-deserved. Great. All right, board of elections, vice president.
Okay.
I don't know if you want.
No,
Okay.
I'm gonna.
Okay.
I'm freestyling it here a little bit. Hi, everybody. Judy Baxter, and I did put out my statement, and when I was writing that statement, as well as today, I was saying this would be, if I become vice president, my 4th position with INC, and this morning I was realizing that with Greg going off and James kind of comes to the executive group, but is working, but that Joel and I are the longest standing members of the executive committee. So, and which sounds very strange to me. But anyway, I started as a delegate from Historic Montclair, and I want you to know that Historic Montclair welcomes you. I didn't get a chance to have that. I was busy making sure people were online here. But Historic Montclair Community Association welcomes you. We are so fortunate to have this historic building, the Mulpery. If you have a chance, take a look at the pictures. We're the oldest neighborhood and organization in Denver. And we started a long, long time ago, long before there was the RNO legislation. And so I started as a delegate and loved this organization because it got me out into the community. It was before COVID, and I was going to delegate meetings like this, and it was like, wow, look at this. And it had a buzz about it, and it had an excitement about it. And I just really enjoyed it. And then, which kept me going to the online meetings when we had to convert through COVID to that space. And I thought INC did a good job of standing up programming throughout that two and a half year period that we were doing online programming. And then I came on as an at-large member and then moved into the secretary position and So that's number 3, but, and now, because LaMone, who was really gonna continue as vice president, she's got some major work to do. And so we roll as a team, and we got each other's back, and so I would like to make a continued contribution in that role as vice president. I believe in community, I believe in connection, I believe in what INC is about, of bringing us together and keeping us informed, keeping us active, and finding the places that we can support each other in real meaningful ways, but that's engagement, and that's my passion. So thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Judy. Okay, so is there discussion? All right, hearing none, I will okay. I will call the, I think I called the vote.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll call the vote, all in favor?
And those online.
So Ann's gonna count in, here, and I think
Actually, I think
Lamone's
Lamone's
counting. Okay. Yeah. And then do I need to record this? Okay. So 10.
10.
Okay.
Yeah, and did you get?
And how many do we have here? 18 in the room? Okay. 19.
Okay.
All right. 29, all opposed?
You can take your hands down now online.
Yeah.
Anybody opposed?
Any abstentions? All right, ayes have it, 29. Thank you, Judy.
All right.
Annette, sure. Well, okay.
Being treasurer, but I have been a delegate to INC, and I think between Cherokee North and Sean for 30 years.
Wow.
And it's kind of pretty sure. And I've never run for the office before, but I think INC is one of the most important organizations in our city. I do think it's the gateway where the city brings their ideas and floats all their trial rooms, and where we get a chance to weigh in on them. I am not, and I will say, a fan of Zoom. I know that more people can hear the presentation, but you do not get the back and forth, the interactions with the neighborhood. So mine, as well as trying to make sure we keep on a good financial footing and follow Greg's footsteps. My other passion is getting people back, meeting in person, where we used to have around the city and people talked about what was going on in their neighborhoods, and then they could say, well, that happened in mine, and this is what we did. So, and especially now with that new organization with the city, where they have just one person, I think while they talked about going to other city agencies and seeing what those agencies wanted for the neighborhoods, it's the neighborhoods that need to tell the city what we want that organization to do, and this is where we'll have the opportunity to do that. So.
Great, thank you, Annette. All right, any discussion? All right, and well, just thank you, Annette, for choosing to fill some big shoes. And yep. So we'll call the vote. All in favor? 11, I'm sorry.
19 and
Perfect. 30 in favor, all opposed? Any abstentions?
Yep.
Okay, great. Passes.
All right.
All right, LaMone.
Yeah. We're gonna,
So my name's LaMone Noles, I'm president of the Denver Residents Council. I got involved with RNO's accident. And it was because of the Stop City Loop protests way back. I went to an organizing meeting they had at National Jewish to move that group to actually an RNO. And Jackie Shumway is the one who nominated me for a position. I didn't know what. But it became City Park. So I stayed with that group, eventually became vice president and then president. And that was before COVID. After COVID, things kind of weird. Then, when my reign was up there, I joined Greater Park Hill. Okay, so I was District 1 delegate for the corner where the Park Hill Golf Course is. So I was with Greater Park Hill 2 groups. Okay. Then in the meantime, I noticed that seniors were not being taken care of. They were kind of like silent voices. So a friend of mine and myself organized the Denver Resident Council so that we can focus on seniors who are still in our communities and help them get what they need in terms of dealing with the city, because it's very difficult to do. And also organizing themselves. So we stood up 2 senior councils, one at the Dahlia Square and the second one at the Chapel Towers 2 in Montbello. So right now with INC, I got involved with the INC, I don't even know. But I like what INC is doing in terms of being an umbrella organization. I got a lot of information and I learned a lot. Then I met these wonderful people here and decided I want to do a board position. So that's why I'm here. I like the community engagement, the outreach I want to get more into, event planning, I really like doing that. And then just basically being of service to the RNL community and the community. So thank you.
Any discussion? All right, well, thank you very much. And we'll just go. All in favor?
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, we're taking votes. Hands raised. 19 in the room. And last one here, 10.
That was 20, sorry.
Oh, there's a new addition.
Yeah.
Yep.
Perfect. All right. Great. All opposed? Abstentions?
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Brad? Okay. One abstention.
Okay.
Let's do
Okay, yeah, sure. So, that passes.
Yes.
We'll move back. Kelsey,
Great.
at large, well, there should be a 2. Yeah.
I'll still tell myself to move on.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Alisha Hammett, and I am president of Major Neighbors, an RNO that conveniently is sort of cushy with Judy over here in Montclair.
I want to tell your intelligence by reading this script to you. But brief history, I moved to Mayfair in 2017. My husband and I loved it here so much that we bought our first house here in May of 2020. I didn't start getting active with Mayfair neighbors, my RNO, until October of 2021. My neighbor wrote me in, conveniently rose to the ranks there, secretary, now I'm in my second year as president. And then as I became president for the first year, one of my ideas was to reach out to all immediate RNOs around me to their leadership. I wanted to talk to the president, see what was working, see what was not working. What does your sponsorship look like? What does your membership infrastructure look like? What do you think you can do better? Like, what can we do to work together to build our communities because we're all neighbors? Most of that was effective, but that list included Keith at INC because I knew you were a member of INC. So I wanted to learn more about what INC was, what value INC brings to RNOs and to the city. And so with that, I got to know Keith pretty well. I volunteered for the awards night celebration last November. I've since gotten to know many of you in this room and hope to get to know more of you. But with that, I have a passion for community development, but also finding opportunities to bring value to neighbors if you don't live in the neighborhood of the city at large, because we all live here. And so I think there's value in learning from each other and participating and being active. And so I see participating as a delegate at large and furthering that idea. So one of the ideas I have for my role as an at-large delegate is to encourage like a leadership summit. I think being a younger person running a nonprofit membership-based organization, I really don't know what it means to be a leader in that type of setting. So I think as younger folks participate in INC, there could be value in learning about what it means to be a leader. To the extent I'm not doing that well right now, sorry everyone. But I just wanted to introduce myself. I look forward to becoming a delegate, seeing what I can do to help INC be a great, valuable resource that it is and continues to be. And I echo all of the sentiments that have been shared by everyone here so far. So thanks so much.
Well, fun fact, Kelsey.
Oh,
I know. I grew up in rural central Illinois, and when I first got a text message, I saw this 217 area code. Who in the world is texting me from 217? I don't talk to my parents, but that's it. Okay. 217. So Kelsey is a Midwest nice, rural central Illinois as well.
So
yeah. All right. Is there any discussion? Any questions? All right. Great. Let's take a vote. All in favor?
Yes, I voted for myself.
Always.
Okay, we're taking votes for
Shane wants you to vote under once.
all right. 20 in the room. And I think we've actually got now 12 online.
Perfect. Great. All opposed?
Okay, I don't think y'all are opposed.
Yeah, if you could lower your hands, and then we'll do another opposed vote.
Different, because they were up.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you lower your hands? That's it. There we go. Okay.
There's a couple online that. Yeah, Mike. Thanks.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so we'll do opposed again. All opposed.
Nada.
Okay.
Any abstentions?
Any abstentions? All right, passes.
Yeah.
Kelsey, welcome forward.
Yeah.
Finally, Joel.
Hi, everyone. I may stay seated. I didn't prepare anything, so it might be helpful to read from this. I'm Joel Cox, not to be confused with Joel Noble. It's funny, I've been to several events where I've introduced myself and said I'm with INC, and they're like, "Oh, Joel Noble," and part of me wanted to be like, "Yes, that's." But no, I've not been involved with INC nearly as long as Joel Noble. It's actually only been about a year. I started off, so I'm on the board of my RNO, the University Park RNO, as their mobility chair. And they said, well, we also need an INC liaison. So I started going to INC meetings and I was like, this is a really cool group. And I remember asking like myself how many meetings I had to go to before I approached Keith so that I could ask before, to get more involved. I was definitely overthinking it because it's almost like I was going to ask him on a date or something. So I was really pleasantly surprised the second meeting, he actually came up to me and he was like, hey, I noticed, you coming around and just wanted to ask, what you're trying to get more involved with. And, I told him that I was really passionate about community engagement and interested in potentially, looking at board positions and other involvements. And then he was like, let's grab coffee. And that's when I knew, this was just a really inclusive place that was welcoming to new people. I then quickly thereafter started having an interest in zoning and planning. So right now I'm getting my master's at DU in environmental policy. We had a class on land use planning. And at first I was like, this is going to be the most boring thing ever. But what I discovered is zoning and land use planning, that's really the underbelly of local policy, right? We all live in a city, we all share spaces. Spaces we have to talk about with each other how we want them to be used so that they're used in a way that benefit everyone. And so, through my chairing of the ZAP committee with Amber, I feel like I've gained a lot of expertise in that field. And so I want to, with hopefully stepping on to the executive committee, create more synergy between the ZAP board and that exec board. Also, I'm a precinct organizer. So that gives me kind of a grassroots engagement background that I want to continue to foster within this organization. And in general, I just really believe in neighborhood advocacy. There was that quote in the Join or Die, what was it? Democracy is messy or democracy is annoying as hell or something. It's a pain in the ass. It really is messy. I think the solution is organizing, and RNOs, that is the official way for communities to organize. Is the official way, sanctioned by the city for us to organize in a way that makes sense, which is within our neighborhoods. So I think we need to make the best of that format. I think there's a lot of really exciting ways in the future that we're going to be able to further empower RNOs, especially with the recent passing of the Community Empowerment Division. And so, working with the rest of the board to find ways that we can position ourselves strategically within that division to find new and exciting lights that, RNOs can, or ways that RNOs can represent themselves in the interests of people in their community. Also, quickly, before I went to grad school, I had a background in marketing. And I think that that's really going to come into play here. So especially, making sure everyone joins our email list, making sure that we're getting good content that reaches everyone. Really want to fire up our social media accounts, maybe even do some targeted ads so that we can get more and more people involved. Because I know that's ultimately the end goal, right? If everyone in this organization has a similar background, then our voice is a lot weaker. But if we expand to different communities, then we really, I think, have a unified front. So I do hope to use my marketing background in that way. So just want to say thanks, everyone. Really looking forward to this opportunity on this board.
For discussion? All right, all in favor?
You are, nobody else will.
Okay, we're taking the vote for Joel Cox to join
Yeah.
as an at-large member. And
Okay.
that's 13.
19 in the room.
19 or 13?
right.
All opposed?
Oh, right.
Be formal. Yep. Drop your hands,
Drop
okay.
your-
Any abstentions?
All
All right, we have one abstention. All right. Great. All right, passed. Joel. I'm very excited to welcome the new board and, thank again, obviously the folks that have stepped off and truly, just appreciate everybody giving something to the neighborhoods and communities. So thank you all. With that, do we want to take like a 2-minute break?
Well, yeah, just,
Yeah, so I think that wraps that up. We're gonna do a presentation on affordable housing. We're very excited for the presenters that I think are in the back room. We're gonna get set up, but please take a 3 to 4 minute break, get some food, go use the restroom.
Okay.
All right, and we're really excited for our guest speakers. And I will let you all introduce yourselves, affordable housing. So thanks for putting this together for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. Great to be here. My name is Alex Gano. I am of relation to Kelsey Gano. So I got to be coming here this morning to present to you on affordable housing. I'm an attorney. I am a co-founder of New Communities Law, and I specialize in affordable housing development and finance. So I do affordable housing projects throughout the state of Colorado, including a whole bunch here in the city of Denver. So we're going to be focusing, because this is Denver and INC, we'll be focusing on Denver. And I have also managed to rope in Dominique Acevedo. She's the executive director of Northeast Denver Housing. And as a client of mine, we're based on Colfax and Josephine, more or less. And Alisha Hammett is a land use and entitlements consultant. So she helps affordable housing developers through the Denver development process. She works in a number of other jurisdictions in Colorado. So she's an expert in the area of housing development as well. So without further ado, you're up first. Okay.
So, Alisha, good morning.
Morning.
So thanks for the introduction, Alex. So today we're going to cover kind of what is affordable housing.
You need to mute. I think, or you.
Saying that I'm muted.
So unmute.
Oh, unmute.
Hold on. I'm just.
No, you should mute. Yes, they muted. Everyone's muted on the meeting.
But I'm hearing it from, oh, you know what it is? I can mute my.
Yeah. Yeah, turn them off.
Sure. This is for our group. This is minor. So you're doing fine. Yeah, don't sweat. Yeah. Well, she's hooked into the HDMI. Okay.
There we go. We good?
Yeah.
We're good.
Great.
Totally good.
Okay, so we're going to talk about what is affordable housing, what's the affordable housing crisis, and what are some of the solutions, what the development process is in Denver, how you all and neighbors play a role in that process, and then Alex is going to cover some legal topics around property rights and zoning, and then we'll have a Q&A. So just about low-income housing tax credits and affordable housing. So low-income housing tax credits are LIHTC. It's the most important resource for creating affordable and workforce housing in the U.S. It actually funds about 90% of affordable housing development in the country. It was created by former President Ronald Reagan, Tax Reform Act of 1986. So it's arguably one of the most successful pieces of conservative legislation we've ever had. I think a lot of people are surprised that affordable housing was funded through conservative legislation, but that's one of the great things about LIHTC is that it is really a bipartisan effort to fund housing, much needed housing for workers. So the federal government issues these tax credits to state and local agencies. So our local agency is the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority, commonly known as CHAFA. You'll hear CHAFA a lot. And so they take those credits and they award them to private developers through a competitive process. And so when developers will end up, developers will sell the credits to private investors to obtain that money. So let's pretend for a second I'm Warren Buffett, and I decide to give Dominique $1 million worth of investment for her building. I'll get $1 million tax, like a credit for it, right? So a lot of folks don't normally know that there's a lot of private investment, private equity that goes into affordable housing. So this is very different from kind of our view of affordable housing from the 50s, right? Today, it's a lot of private investors. They're well-designed buildings. They're designed to the same quality or exceed market rate design because that credit has to be there for a minimum of 15 years or else that credit can be recaptured. So those private investors are super interested in keeping their investment well-maintained, well-run, well-managed, well taken care of, and so those buildings are well designed. So with that, I'm going to pass it to Dominique.
So I'm Dominique Acevedo, I'm the Executive Director of Northeast Denver Housing Center. We're a private nonprofit. We've been in around for 40 years, and I've been there for 30 of those. So I want to talk to you today a little bit, just frame what the affordable housing crisis is and really what is affordable housing. So I love these Denver, City of Denver slides in that, is anybody here familiar with Dr. Cox's study that just got put out? We did a 10-year study kind of projecting what the housing need is going to be in Colorado, and this is just fascinating to me because it's talking about the need in Colorado and the fact that over the next 10 years, Denver's going to need 44,800 units of housing. I mean, that's significant. Why is that important in the context of affordable housing? If we don't have enough supply, what happens to demand? So there's just going to be so much demand, but not enough supply, and therefore the housing costs go up. So this study from Dr. Cog was absolutely critical, and I think it frames really the situation. This is the crisis that we're in and what we need to really look at. I love this slide again, City of Denver. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Green Policy Research, Heidi Adler, but they did some research in 2019, and what I love about this is, it's showing at 30% AMI, 50%, 60, 80, and 100. What is the need going to be for housing units? And you can see the shortage at each income level, and it gets better as you go up. But I guess the real crisis we're having now is that you need it at every income level. So typically, affordable housing. I'll go to the next slide.
Actually, could you go back?
Sure.
Explain that slide. Okay, so what you're showing there is the light blue is what we have, yes? And the dark, the kind of what it was called.
Market rate stock is the blue, and then publicly assisted is the next one, right?
And then the arrow going up is.
Yes,
okay.
The shortage. And so the higher you go up in AMI, right, the less the shortage. But I think the fascinating thing about this is, affordable would typically be at that 60% envelope, right? But you've heard a lot about workforce or missing middle, right? 80% and 100 are going up that high, but you're starting to see the need also go up to that. And that's partially related to supply. It's also related to things that we're seeing with inflation and, it's harder to build right now, right? They're all connected.
So what's the yellow? The yellow on the left side?
Market rate new development, right?
So that's new development that's happening at the market rate, as in unaffordable.
So folks that are earning more than so for a single family household, that's folks earning more than $73,000.
Yeah, so this, that's great. 100% EMI, which is the top one, right, this one right here. Okay, and those are the income levels for those AMIs. So, 60 was way down below, right? Of that chart, and then we're going all the way up to 100. But you're seeing at every income level, yes, it's a greater need at the lower, but you're seeing need all the way up to 100. I think that's pretty shocking for people. I think that defines why we're in affordable housing crisis. And it's all pure numbers driven. Like it's data. So what does that mean? I love this slide. Again, getting Deborah credit for doing something right here, but it's hard sometimes for people to understand, who we're talking about serving at these AMI levels. So here we go, 33,000 a year, a food service worker, preschool teacher at 46,000, again, 30% AMI, 50% AMI, social workers at 60, electricians at 80% AMI, and registered nurses at 100% AMI. That kind of starts to get you to see like the people that need the housing, and I love that slide.
Yeah. Yes.
And 45% of jobs in Colorado are pay $43,000 or less. 45% of the workforce, less than $43,000. And it shows why this is so important to have subsidized housing.
I apologize, I'd like to be asking this back. I look at these charts and say, wait a second, so the bottom one is family, yes, that's in fixed family, yes? Okay, and that's how much they make
As a household.
as a household, 35,200, and the next one up is 27,400, is it one? And how does that, okay, how does that relate to the food service workers? So that's the average between it?
Well,
33,800.
yeah.
Okay, just trying to figure that out. Okay, thanks.
And just, sorry, like one thing we try to do at meetings too is make sure everybody's kind of on the same page.
Oh, I love that.
So, if you could just go over AMI real quick for everybody.
Median income. So the state, so Colorado Housing and Finance Authority, they publish these charts of what the median income is for counties. So we have for each county, there's a range of, they publish a chart like this, right? And so the household size, rents are based on household income. So, that's how they determine like what the income ranges are, and then those income ranges are associated with a range of rents or a cap or a max rent that you would pay if you're in an affordable housing development. So these charts get updated every year. So if we were to look at like a development that opened in June of last year, these are the income levels that would qualify you to have an affordable housing unit. So
even at 6 people in your house, you've got to be making 151,000.
Well,
you still qualify?
No, it would be the 80% of the AMI chart and below. So that would be if you have a 6-person household, the max amount that your household could make is $119,100 per year. But that income would qualify you for an affordable housing unit in Denver. So I think this is something that gets misperceived all the time, is that we think it's only just super low income folks. Right. But $119,000 for a household is actually quite a bit of money. It's just not getting them very far, right?
And for a household of 6.
That's right, for a household of 6, right? For in the city of Denver.
And this is all of Denver? It's not broken up by just Denver?
No, it's just Denver County, so it's by county. So like Arapahoe County has a different chart, right? Douglas County has a different chart. See Boulder County, right? They have higher incomes, their median incomes are much higher than Denver. So that's how, so the developer doesn't get to set the rents. So Dominique doesn't get to set the rents for development. They have to follow the rules to get into those ranges.
Yeah, but what I would say is 60% AMI and below is typically what's deemed affordable for rental. For home ownership, it can go as high as 80, sometimes 100% AMI. But again, I love some of these charts because you're seeing that there's a need at that wider rate, range from 30 to 100%.
And I have to make sure I'm clarifying this, because I have to think about my newer understanding of this. AMI actually can go up according to, because that's the problem with when we say affordable housing, that literally when housing starts going up, the AMI goes up in the area, so then ultimately the affordable housing becomes less affordable.
AMI is based on Census Bureau statistics, right?
Right.
One problem we're having is that you have workers whose incomes are going up, but then the chart for the housing cost is going up much faster.
Because houses are being bought at the higher level area, am I crazy about that?
Well, we're
But
not saying.
incomes aren't keeping up with the cost of housing.
That's what I thought.
And that's why there's that gap,
That's
right?
what-
That's why you're seeing the need grow up into the higher, the amount of underserved is growing high. So that's why you're seeing it go up past 60, 80, all the way up to 100.
But like in Arapahoe County, more than 50% of households are paying more than 50% of their household income in housing. So this is a common, right? So the incomes aren't necessarily, the wages aren't keeping up with the cost of housing for either rental or for ownership. And that's why we have those prices.
Thank you.
So what we do at Northeast Summer Housing Center is a lot of affordable housing development. And I just want to point out some key items when we're doing that. One is location matters. So I think this is a myth with affordable housing, is that you can build it anywhere. No, we're just like anybody else, and you want to build it in good locations where it doesn't exist. If you want it to be successful, and if you want people who are living in it to be successful, our families need access to the same amenities that everybody else gets, and location really is key to the success long term. So this is a project, this condominium project we did near the light rail station in Central Park, just a phenomenal location. And this is just going over that, like you want to be where the jobs are, you want to be where the amenities are. You want to be where there's amenities where families can really take advantage of these things. I think this is really, really important if you want affordable housing to succeed, and you want people and families to succeed in affordable housing. Along those same lines, so this was mapping some of the light tech, low income housing tax credit apartments we did. And if you build it in really good locations, this is in Central Park, right? We're mapping everywhere that people came from to live in this affordable housing. So, that's why location is important. But it's just showing you, if you build it where people do not have an opportunity in areas that don't have this housing, they will come, and they will come from all over to have the opportunity to live in these really great neighborhoods. What is the challenge? This is just the simple challenge of what we do. Here's a lifetime project. When we do that, because those rents are capped at 60% AMI, what does that do? That means that, here's the blue, we can only raise typically 31% in senior debt, because we can only get that much revenue from lower rents. That means we have to raise 69, 70% of our funds in debt. That is extremely hard to do. That's the challenge we face. It's even harder now with the, funding being increasingly decreasing.
That gap funding is not like
funding. Public, city, states, grants.
so like tech only makes a portion of the capital stack that funds the affordable housing.
And then this is on condos, for sale condos we did. It's the same concept. So what we try to do is we try to cap the sales prices at the 60% AMI rent level, so that your mortgage payment is about what you pay for an affordable rent payment, right? And again, just the same concept. You can't raise that much in funding sources. So it's pretty much the same thing, like 70–80% of your project costs, you're gonna be out there trying to raise down funding. That's why it's hard for people to do that now, and that's why you're not seeing a ton of it even done.
Question right now?
How does the mortgage fit in with the HOA or the condo fees that we pay to maintain the buildings and the common areas? How does that, because I know that's something that people often don't consider when you buy a condo. It's not just the mortgage, it's that thing you have to pay for the group areas.
To be affordable, you really shouldn't be over like, somewhere between 30 and 40% of your gross income in housing costs. So whether it's a rental or for sale, that's what you should be with it. When we do for sale product, we really try to make it like as affordable to maintain. So, we're picking products that are gonna like last. When we're doing condo buildings, we're decreasing the amount of common area square footage so that you have less to keep people. And we're really focusing on keeping that HOA fee down so that we can be within those percentages on it.
What they're trying to do is like what 30%, 33% of your total income goes to housing. So that housing includes your first mortgage, your property insurance, your property taxes, and your HOA fees. So you're trying to get that entire bucket into 33% of it.
I'm going to talk about land entitlements. So land entitlements is just a legal process so that the developer obtains approval from the local jurisdiction for their development plans. And so this often includes architects and civil engineers, all the engineers, landscape architecture, everyone who has to design and deliver a building. And so common land entitlements are rezonings, comprehensive plan amendments, or area and neighborhood plans. So Denver's gone through this whole neighborhood planning initiative. Special use and conditional use permits. In Denver, we call those kind of zone permits that might require a community information meeting. So those are really common with like residential care permits. So when there's a new shelter or there's a tiny home building, anything like that, that will require a community information meeting. Subdivision plats are like big area plans, so large development reviews, general development plans in Denver will require neighborhood outreach. And then there's site development plans, civil construction documents, and building plans. Everything that's kind of highlighted there in orange, or circled in the orange, are entitlements in Denver that require a public hearing. So you'll notice that for site development plans in Denver, they're administratively approved, meaning if you have a by right use on your property, you can build it without having to notify the neighbors, without having to do any kind of community engagement at all. But as soon as you're changing like the land use or the vision for an area, that's when you have to engage the neighbors. So the most common one, the most frequent one is rezonings. So full disclosure, I'm the latest member of Denver Planning Board. So I may or may not see some of you. This is kind of how the applicant is Denver rezoning review process. So I'll get a call from a developer and say, hey, I have a site that I'm looking to rezone. What do you think is possible, right? So I'll look at the zoning and say, okay, you have a by right use for multi-family housing here and do affordable housing, or you can't, right? And so if you can't, then I have to figure out, can I actually zone the property to accommodate the use? Sometimes that answer is no. And so I'll call the developer and say, there's no path to re-entitling this piece of land, don't buy it. Still go under contract, find something else. If I do think that there's a good chance that we could rezone it, and that means in Denver, we have Blueprint Denver, which is one of our big area plans, and we have neighborhood plans. Those plans will literally say what the future use will be. So I think a lot of times when people look at rezonings, they look at adjacent zone districts and think, oh yeah, this can happen or this can't. But actually adjacent zoning has nothing to do with whether or not you can change the zone. It all has to do with what did the community set as a vision for this area in the future. And so that includes building height and it includes use. So those documents, anyone can go through in Denver, Google an address, or put in an address in the Blueprint Denver map, and it will tell you what that future land use is. And so in Denver, we have areas of change and kind of established neighborhoods where there's not a lot of development, very low. It doesn't say no development, it's just less likely to. So if I do my research and I'm like, it's an area of change, that area of change includes, a height of 5 stories, and it's good for multifamily housing. Okay, developer, I think we can do this. How much time do I have to rezone the property? Because usually takes about 6 months, 6 to 9 months, depends. So then we go to the city and we have a concept review team to go in with the kind of a concept plan of what we're trying to develop, and we get a gut check on, okay, can we rezone this property to this new zone district? And can we build what we think we want to be able to build? And the city will come back and say, yes, that new district could have staff support, meaning good job, you did your research. Or they'll come back and say, well, you could change the land use, but there's this huge easement. It's gonna be very expensive, probably not developable, right? So then we're done with it. So that's kind of the initial step. If that meeting goes well, then, and the developer wants to rezone the property, that's when you all will get noticed, typically by a design team. And they'll say, okay, we're gonna have a community meeting to talk about this land use change and this rezoning and this potential project that we want to build once the rezone is done. In Denver, that public outreach is really just for the land use. We're just talking uses. We're not often talking about an actual development because in that list that I showed you, site development plan is by right. So the community doesn't necessarily get a comment about the design of the building. They get say on the use that's there, if it's appropriate, and then sometimes they also get say on height, right? And sometimes open space requirements depending on how large the development is. So for sites that are over 5 acres, the community will have say on how much open space needs to be delivered or certain amenities. So once the public outreach is done, they'll also talk to counselors. Just full disclosure, everyone will talk to the city councilor before formal application. Once the formal application is into the city, which is step 4 here, we can no longer talk to city council because we need their vote. So if they would have to recuse themselves if they talk to the applicant during the rezoning process. So that rezoning application goes into the city. There's usually a legal description and a letter, and like a letter of authorization, but a letter justifying why this rezoning is legally allowed to proceed. The city will review it and it will refer it out to agencies like CDOT or to whoever might be a stakeholder. And then they'll deem it complete for public hearing. So there's a long public hearing process here in Denver. The first hearing is planning board. You'll get a notice in the mail. You'll see a sign on the property for planning board. Then it goes to the Land Use and Transportation Infrastructure Committee, which is a subcommittee of City Council. They don't typically, you won't get a notice for a Rudy, but you are allowed to attend. But it's usually really inconvenient time, like 10 a.m. on Tuesday. Yes.
Yeah, but also they don't have to public comments.
They don't. They don't. No.
So
not always.
Most
likely, no. Yeah. And then mayor council, another you can attend but not speak. And then city council goes to 2 hearings. So the first reading is the drafting of the ordinance. Typically, the applicant doesn't show up to the first reading. The second reading is the actual public hearing. That's where you'll get another notice to participate. So really for neighborhoods, neighborhood organizations, you have an opportunity to participate at the neighborhood meetings, at planning board, where you can go up and speak to planning board, and at city council second reading.
Can I interrupt you? You go back because this is interesting. This is such a great process. And very early on, I don't know what happened to anywhere else. The East area plan, we talked about it, we gave input, and they totally ignored us. So the entire East area plan is based upon, they literally ignored the neighborhoods. Right now, if you drive down East Colfax, go look at Elm and East Colfax when you leave here today, and go look at the 6-story building that is going up right there at the corner that was built. And oh, look at this. I mean, this is unbelievable. The ignoring what's happening. Want to see what's going to happen in the entire East Colfax? Look at that building. It's going to be East Colfax Canyon with BRT. It's what they're planning. And I understand we need more housing, I'm right there with it. My issue is they have the meetings and then they ignore this. The last administration is not your problem. So if you guys could go back and please visit all of those plans and find out if the neighborhood's input was actually, listened to. And it was not. And now we're Park Hill, so we're up that way. East Area is a little bit more down here, but it affects everything that goes up that direction. So I have watched, in the last administration, God bless it, I watched the whole thing of just ignoring the neighborhoods. I literally left all the neighborhood stuff because I wasn't gonna waste my time. I thought I only have so many decades left in my life, and so I'm not gonna waste my time. And I watched, they were ignoring us, and I thought how horrible that is, and it continues to be like that, and I'm hoping that that will change.
Yeah, I mean, regular participation in those meetings is so critical, and showing up to the hearings is so critical, and also just letting your council person, like really.
But you're telling us it's too late by the time it gets here. I'm talking going back to 1 and 2. I need to go back and revisit this.
Yeah.
Y'all want to really involve and get Denver to feel good about our city government again? That would really, really help.
Yeah, I think, so neighbors can actually initiate amendments to their area plans. So the West Area Plan is going through something like that right now. Where there was a lot of rezonings that happened, right, in the West area. So Jamie Torres' district, after their adopted plan was adopted, and so then they wrote a memo about this moratorium on demolition and land use changes. And that all came because the neighbors were like, wait a minute, we didn't think we got what we thought we were signing up for. So there are methods to do that through your city councilors. So if you're organized, you're allowed, and you can have those plans considered revisited. That there is a process. So assuming that the land use change is approved, or the rezoning is approved, then it goes into administrative review at the city. And so for sites in Denver, most sites are already zoned accordingly, so we don't really see a lot of rezonings to accommodate multifamily housing, because so many zone districts allow it already. But so if I were to just have a land that was already entitled, I would do my due diligence to make sure, again, no easements, no like floodplain, there's a million issues with sites, because all the easy ones are done. So all the ones that are left over, I'm suspicious of. Like, I have a colleague who, they had started construction, and there was an underground stream that they discovered. Very expensive change. So then we'll do a concept review meeting with the city again, with kind of a schematic plan. We'll do, in Denver, they have a very extensive concept review and referral process before you can even submit to the formal application. So in that concept review, the city engineering team is going to make sure that you have sanitary sewer capacity, we have water, we have power, like basically all the right utilities outright to develop, and then that you have a plan that substantially complies with something. So that's kind of what the concept review is for. And then anything that you might miss, like, is there some easement that you don't know about that's going to make this project feasible? Once you're released a formal development plan, that's where we have all of our engineering team, and we've designed the building, we've priced it, we know what we're going to build. So we submit those plans to the city of Denver. Usually takes 3 rounds of review to get through that. And that 3 rounds of review is thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of consultant time, architecture, engineering, landscape architecture, structural engineering, yes.
Is all this that you have on this page after the initial application for rezoning has been filed with the city?
Yes, if the rezoning has to happen.
Because you talked about due diligence.
That's right.
Previous slide, but it's a different due.
It's a different due diligence, right? At this point, the due diligence at the site plan level is like, what's in the ground? Like, what is, we're drilling, we're getting environmental assessment reports, right? I've had projects that found dinosaur bones that are now in the museum. So that delayed the project by 18 months because we had to follow all the state rules, right? If we have section 106 funding, which has to do with historic preservation, we have to do hire state preservationists to do a thorough study of archaeology of the site before we move forward with permitting. So there's a lot more fine-tuned research we have to do at this space.
And I have a question. This is all headed up by the department?
That's correct.
All these steps?
Yeah, it's all headed up by community planning and development. And so this is development services at CPD. So there's kind of two houses at community planning and development in Denver. You have your long range planning team, which are your rezonings, land use, comp plan, area plans, neighborhood plans, right? They don't do development at all. You show them a set of plans, they're not gonna be able to read them. Then there's development services, and that's where they're reading technical documents all day. So, so I think you'll see that a lot sometimes at council, where council will ask a technical question about a development, a future development, and the planner won't know, and it's because that planner is in long-range planning, really knows land use, right? But they don't necessarily know the zoning and the life safety and all the rules that apply to development services. So we go through this extensive referral process. This process typically takes 9 to 12 months in Denver, and then it's administratively approved. There's no public hearing. You meet the criteria. They will issue you a building permit. So again, public outreach really mostly for rezonings and area plans. This is kind of just from the applicant's perspective. So we see land use changes as mini campaigns, right? You have to get a lot of buy-in from lots of different stakeholders to get a land use change. They often require negotiation with the neighbors. You've probably heard of good neighbor agreements. This is where good neighbor agreements happen, typically are rezonings. Affordable housing developers, when you have an affordable housing developer that's looking to rezone, they have totally different constraints than a market rate developer. So they are super limited on what they can deliver due to the strict constraints of their funding sources. So each of their gap funding has certain rules of how they can apply the funding, and LIHTC has a lot of rules that they have to adhere to due to federal regulation. So sometimes things that you might be able to negotiate and get with a market rate developer, you can most likely get with a market rate developer, but cannot get with an affordable housing developer because they just don't have the funds or the access of capital that plays well with the other capital that's in their capital stack to deliver the project. So they are capped at how much money they can make. So unlike market rate housing developers are not capped at how much income they can make on a project, right? So that's also why they can make a lot of concessions. They'll say they can. Affordable housing developers are capped at 12%. So they really are limited on what they can deliver, right? And so when they come to you, just try and keep that in mind, that they have way more rules they have to follow than someone who's not delivering market rate development. So the permitting of and developing affordable housing is not like market rate. We have ferocious time. So just to give you an idea, we have like a concept plan of a building that we work on, get it priced, theoretically based on number of units and parking and all of that. That goes into a LIHTC application package that goes in August 1st. The deadline is always the same. We find out in November, usually the week before Thanksgiving, if the project's been awarded. So kind of them to tell us the week before Thanksgiving, because all our clients are like, we have to start now. We have to design a building now because we have 12 months to design and permit a building. Or else we could lose the credits could be recaptured. So this is very unlike market rate where we have more time. We're always trying to go fast because time is money, but especially for low-income housing tax credits, if you have a nonprofit developer, a lot of times they're taking on that risk of paying the design team, which is going to cost, $1 million to do these drawings, right? And so if you don't do it right, you can end up bankrupting a nonprofit. So if we don't deliver our building permit on time, I could bankrupt a nonprofit organization, and then they won't serve the community, right? So we're working with Henninger Homes, Bay Enterprises, right? They're a 50-year institution here in Denver that's providing services for people experiencing homelessness. They took on the financial risk of that development. We had a case where we had to go to the Board of Adjustments, huge risk, and not recommended. We were racing to the finish line to make sure that we closed on our credits, so we're not bankrupting this 50-year institution. right? And that the developer will be able to develop again. A lot of times the penalties are huge if you don't close on time, your credit's on time. You don't have that building permit in 12 months, and you don't get an extension, you could be suspended from developing affordable housing ever again. Right? So we don't want that. So there's enormous pressure. So being able to closely communicate and frequently communicate, especially with the rezoning, is so important. That we can get through that process fairly quickly. We usually have a longer lead time with we try to do the rezoning. It's usually a year ahead of when the credits would be awarded because we have to have rezoning workers to compete for the award. But just keep that in mind that if you're talking to an affordable housing developer and you feel stressed, or a design team feels stressed, it's because we have these real timelines that hurt us. So common concerns and questions about affordable housing, parking and traffic is something I hear all the time, right? But I want you to know that affordable housing generally generates less traffic because each unit is rented by household versus unrelated, right, residents occupying the unit. So like if you have a 3-bedroom unit and a light tech, it's going to be a household, right? And so most likely if that household is 60% AMI or below, they're only going to have one car. You know, it gets about market rate once you get to 80% AMI, the number of cars you have in the household. But 60 or below, it's usually just no car per household or no car per household if you're at that 30% AMI. Just because vehicles are expensive. So whereas like that same 3-unit apartment in market rate might have 3 working professionals who are all there to car, right? That generates 3 times as much traffic. So in general, affordable housing generates lower traffic. They're typically co-located in the areas. They typically give eco passes or some kind of subsidized transit. And so they generally generate less traffic. Impact on property values. So there's no academic study that's proven a negative impact on property values. Usually it's no impact or an increase in property value. So if you think about it, you're infusing a community with like a $20 to $50 million investment in the building. All of those jobs that go into that over the 2 to 3 year construction span, right? And then you have people who are housed. So they're housed, they're not doing crime, right? So it tends to be really good for communities. Truvia did one 2 years ago here in Denver. That's publicly available. Just sorry.
Oh no, you're doing a great presentation. Question, just what's the interplay between housing and providing this, like, it seems the maximum number of, affordable units with commercial, like the bottom floor commercial on any of these buildings that are being built? Because it seems like in mixed use, yeah, because it seems like, on the west side, it seems like you're putting a lot of people in a small area and then making them go other places for services when we're not including commercial in those levels. And I think that's what neighborhoods sometimes are worried about, is losing like the walkability to like a store or medical services. And I think that's, something that I know our neighborhood struggles with.
Sure. So that's a great question. So you cannot build commercial development with low-income housing tax credits because it only finances the housing that's interested in housing people, right? And then if you have a housing authority, right, their mission is housing. So what happens, I know a few private developers who do affordable housing where they condoize the parts of the building to finance them. These are super sophisticated finance deals where it's like, okay, the housing is LIHTC, the core and shell of the building is financed through gap funding, and that's how you get commercial leasing on the first floor. So the reason why you don't see it very often is because it's incredibly challenging to finance. It requires lots of lawyer fees to figure out. And so that's one of the reasons why it's not done often. And we've also seen just a tank in commercial real estate, right? Like they are offering incentives to rent downtown. So it's just challenging to do. If the low-income housing tax credit program made it easier to do for commercial spaces, I think our developers would be inclined to do so. But the risk of doing it is very challenging. And even like I worked on Vinia in Beauville, and it's got a medical office and a restaurant floor, and then it still has a huge, large vacant space that was supposed to be a subsidized grocery that wasn't even going. So they're just tricky, and then you have vacant space that's not generating rents.
Well, I think some of the problem with that is the size of these spaces. I think you go to other cities or whatnot, they have very small spaces, they're commercial.
Right.
And the rents are down.
Right.
By comparison to these huge, spaces we have in downtown.
Yeah.
So when we're doing that in these, like, I don't know what Central Park looks like, in terms of, the amount of affordable housing that's gone in, but, making sure that there's services available for people that are living there to create a neighborhood.
Sure.
Yeah.
I worked on the one in your neighborhood,
Mhm.
and I actually did use the planned community concept and actually got approved by both HUD and Fannie with Q-Tech Rock. And we split that one and we did talk about capital tax. We had new market tax credits, which is the commercial version of LIHTC on the main level. Then we did 2 towers, one with the 12%, one with the 4% from HUD. And this is being done more and more to address your point. It is more difficult, but it's starting to be more standardized. And so I worked on this 15 years ago. I was just talking to some of my former partners. They use this all the time. And that's really a goal, is to more standardize the process, which involves a cooperation agreement, so that all those funding sources lenders who then take those tax credits and securitize it in marketplace, so you have a whole different secondary market for different kinds of credits, to make it more standardized, so that mixed use projects that can actually be funded. But it is more difficult. Hopefully it's being done enough so that some of those documents that are difficult to negotiate, because every interest has a different law firm. And they'll need to get, once they become more standardized, just
The other part of that too that I didn't talk about is parking. So parking is so expensive, and a lot of times you're trading parking for housing, and you have to park commercial space at a higher rate than dwelling units in Denver.
But can you mandate so many parking spots per unit?
So the answer is yes and no. So we can always design a code minimum in Denver. So for affordable housing that's below 60% AMI, it's 0.1 spaces per unit. It goes up based on zone district. If you go above that, if you go above 60% AMI, because it works normally market rates, it's usually 1 per unit. But the financiers also have their own parking ratios that they think work, right? And so, when you're applying for TAP, if you have 3-bedroom units, you have to have a parking study as part of your LIHTC application, because Chapter really cares about funding parking associated with housing. So that often exceeds code minimum. So it's usually investment driven on the parking.
Yeah, we have one comment from Robert Schmidt online. CPD should lobby for inclusion of DO-8 for all affordable projects. Does that?
Design overlay 8.
Oh, yeah, that's.
For all affordable projects.
You comment, do you have any?
I will not comment on that. I am a Denver person, so I don't know if I'm
Okay.
But I could see why people would want, it ensures a higher level of design on these buildings, but I would argue that they are well designed.
Okay. And we're starting to run out of time. The questions are really great, but people want to stay longer. That's it. So, I'm gonna Katie, Kathy, and then we need to keep going.
Just really quickly mentioning on the parking is that there are some parking regulation adjustments that are going to be coming before city council. And so that's something that if you're interested, I know that there's going to be some more hearings and more.
Okay. And Kathy?
Yeah.
So I was just wondering, is there any mechanism where you can build a combination affordable and market rate in the same development?
Yes, this happens, so Denver Housing Authority does this a lot with like a third dwelling income, a third kind of 2% AMI, and then a third market rate. And you want housing to be at all different level incomes in all neighborhoods, because it benefits everyone, right? We don't have class three poverty. And so having, low housing in established neighborhoods is really for everyone. Gives them access to the schools and all the things that, we're not subsidized housing get, right?
So why isn't that being done?
No, I love this. No, this is key. What you're saying is key. We're trying to do a mixed income project right now. The reason why I love it is because we're how we're doing it, we're able to do it through the mixing of the income and not have to do low income housing tax credit. We can do it faster and better. It's hard, but you get to serve a lot more people at every AMI, and because of that, we can cross subsidize, and we don't have to get into tax credit. And I think that you're going to see more and more of that. That is kind of the wave of where things are going, and thank you for recognizing.
Yeah, I live in Lowry, we have a number of low-income projects in our neighborhood. But it's not integrated. I mean, it's like, they stand out, everybody knows who they are, and they feel very separate, and a lot of the commissioners try to bring them into our community, and this.
We're doing that right now, 30 to 120%. Think good things for us. Where's that? North Capitol.
1,600 per.
Yep.
So I will just say that, you know, we do need to probably wrap this up in the next 10 minutes or so, but, you know, just as a general comment, I think like going to some of the points that you had about the planning board is that neighborhoods, and I think RNOs often get like talked about as these, you know, kind of terrible places that want to stop at all the development and things like that. And I haven't really seen that. What I have seen is people feeling like they haven't gotten the information in a timely manner. And I think that people in neighborhoods can be a real ally if information is provided much further in advance than it is because it really feels like sometimes that, you know, the planning board is moving ahead of where they think, you know, they don't think they're going to get support from a neighborhood, so they, you know, kind of are trying to move ahead without providing all that information. So just as a, you know, food for thought.
I recognize it's 11 o'clock, so I'm going to skip a historical introduction to property rights while you guys make the point. Okay, so something Dominique was saying earlier about the crisis. What we have in Colorado is population increase of about 2.5%-ish a year. We are building about 1% new housing stock every year. So if you think there's a delta missing 1.5%. So you guys know how compound interest works, right? So like every year, if this trend continues, housing will continue to outpace household incomes, and the homeless population is going to continue to grow. Like we're just not generating enough housing, period, to keep up with population growth. It's kind of unique in Colorado. I mean, there's some states like Colorado are growing, and we have this problem. We just don't have enough housing, and it's going to keep getting worse until we build more housing. So in the interest of time, I will skip to my last slide, which I think both Dominique and Alisha touched on a little bit, but how to meaningfully contribute to development in your area. You guys are all community leaders, you're all involved with RNOs, you're here at INC. So if you're wondering, how can I contribute for the things that require public notice, right? Your rezonings, your plan amendments, like participate in those hearings. Right, you're going to get notices, and RNO board members, you guys under the zoning code get a special notice, right? If you are an RNO in a neighborhood that a development is going to go into, your RNO is going to get a notice. Like, what do you do with that? Community meetings are part of these processes. You guys should attend. Come early. We were sitting around at breakfast this morning talking about how useful these community meetings can be. Because if everybody comes and says, "Okay, I'm looking at your project. These are the 10 things I don't like." Nobody likes to hear that people don't like this, right? But at least that gives you a roadmap going forward. Like, okay, I hear what the neighborhood is saying, and I'm going to go back with my consultants, my engineers, my architects. I'm gonna do the best I can to fix it. I mean, if you just think, oh, this project stinks and I don't want anything here, that's tough. But like, if you have good contributions, take them to your community meetings, right? The developers are listening. They want their project to succeed. So tell them in these meetings what it is that you want. I don't need to harp on this one. All you guys involved with your RNOs, that's a good way to be involved with the process. Contact your city councilors, right? Like these are the people who will be voting on these things, right? Tell them what you think. And this is, I think this one is maybe the most important, but city councilors, planning board members, they know the people who show up are usually unhappy, right? It's not, but they also, there are hundreds, maybe thousands of people who aren't at the meeting who either like it or they don't care, right? Yeah, whatever. So try to, by all means, oppose projects that you don't support. Like you're like, you know what, this stinks. Go make your voice heard. We live in a free country, so do that. But also, for the projects that you do support, say something. Like tell somebody, like send out a one-page email. Because when we go to these public hearings, it's usually a huge stack of people who don't like it, and all the people who do like it aren't doing anything to help us, right? So we're facing this perception of public opposition because it's when you get bad service at a restaurant, you go complain about it. When you get great service, leave a nice tip and you leave, right? Like people aren't saying, I like what you're doing. And I wish more people would step forward and say, this is going on in my neighborhood, I like it, like please support this. So that's all I got. Go ahead.
Yeah. You have to contact the city council person, and yet we heard earlier that after the rezoning is filed, you can't.
We can't.
I mean, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Can you give them feedback?
Oh,
But
yeah.
they are not allowed to communicate back to you.
Well, as the applicant, so like we represent a developer, we're an applicant. Once we submit an application, we're in what's called a quasi-judicial process. Right. So we cannot be going to the city councilor after we've submitted an application, because that would be like the defendant or the witness talking to the judge in the hallway, right? Like you can't do that. But as citizens, by all means, go to their office, send them an email, call their office. Like you guys can say whatever you want.
Actually, your council person is restricted from speaking with you after it's filed.
Yeah.
So you can send in your comments from your RNO to the staff file. If your council person receives it directly from you as a needs recommendation, they have to recuse themselves. So they will not participate in RNO meetings. They usually leave before they talk about a project. Just FYI.
Yeah. It's a quasi-judicial process. So we're kind of acting like a judge.
I'm just trying to figure out what is that gray area when you stick it in the file? Does that mean nobody's going to read it?
No,
that's what I can't.
They get, so if you send an email to staff during the life of the application, that will go into, as a planning board member, the staff report that I get from staff will include all the emails, all the letters, in a hearing that are to council or about that application.
Okay.
So we get that as part of our staff report, when we're making a decision as a body. So then planning board just makes a recommendation to council. We don't actually. The only thing we approve is like signage point on center, some design and stuff, but we just make a recommendation to council, and then council gets that same exact packet. So they will see all your written comments if you submit it to city staff.
I just have a quick comment on this because I think sometimes as a neighbor or an organization, when you go to the community meetings, it's just something the city has to develop, or they have to have 3 meetings, and they're not really listening. And I think that in the RNO 101, when you have a really strong and active RNO that knows the ins and outs of development, like we in Cherry Creek have, you can have a little bit stronger voice. So while this seems nice, and if you have a really strong RNO, you can really affect the development. I think some of the other neighborhoods feel like it's pretty much a done deal when you have some of those community meetings. So I don't know how to make it better.
I think it's a great time with Lou,
Yeah.
right? To outreach those areas where they
Right.
could benefit from figuring out how to
You know,
have an
the
effective.
RNO 101, the stuff where you feel like you really do have a voice, and maybe that's why most of the people come and It's the people who are saying, you know, like it,
Yeah.
because they never feel like someone at those early meetings really listened.
But I've had well-organized neighbors are very effective.
Yeah.
Right, like I do development all over Colorado, and actually then the people I think are quite generous and quite supportive. Sometimes you go out to the suburbs, Douglas County, like you're in for it, right? Like those neighbors are very well organized, they get the project, and they are not gonna take it quiet.
They were matching shirts.
Yeah.
So we need matching. City folks are all the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if it's affordable housing or marketplace.
Yeah.
You know, it's meetings where you go to, you know, yeah, we're here, but doesn't matter, it's already decided.
I'll say something about it too. Denver's process, because so many things are administratively approved, actively remove community feedback. And if you notice what they say, don't call them neighborhood meetings, call them community information meetings. As though it's one way, right?
Yeah.
So I think the culture of Denver development is that, whereas like, you know, we go to our neighbors in Aurora, not saying that they do development great either, but like, there's a neighborhood meeting that's required after the first site plan review. Subsequent meetings are required to get enough public feedback, and then all their multifamily development goes to here. Now, there's pros and cons to both. One, the neighbors feel more engaged, they know they're more informed about what's happening, right? So they don't see a building pop up overnight. The downside is that it adds a lot of risk to the developer, and so they're less likely to develop in Aurora, even though they have a huge need. So those are kind of the pros and cons, where it's like, you want to balance community feedback, but what I'm finding is that with a lot of development, the neighbors just want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
And so like a lot of the neighbor agreements I see are really just like, hey, check in with us and tell us what you're doing. Right? It's not even like big concessions, it's just, can you come and communicate with us more often about where you are in the process, right? And so for certain entitlement processes, that's built in with the city, the developer has to comply, because that's the law, that's how we do it. But in a lot of places where you have by right zone, right, you can see a 5-star building going up off Colfax, and all of a sudden it's just framed up, right? And you don't know who's there, right? Because there's no mechanism, there's no legal framework for the neighbors to be notified. So, you know, if you want that, I would ask your council members to say, hey, we want an informational notice to go out as part of the development application. Because a lot of jurisdictions do that. Most of the program shows that, where they get a little postcard in the mail, but you know that something's happening in the backyard. So even that would improve, I think, some of the perceptions around development.
Thank you so much, all of you. This was awesome. I just want to say that I didn't know this until recently, and I know a lot of you probably know this, because you've been around for a lot longer than I have with INC, is that INC is really the instrumental voice to get this neighborhood notification in 1979. And it was included in the newsletter this month, but really, I mean, you know, the folks that were around, and Michael Henry, I don't think he's online anymore, but he was, you know, that helped to get that notification in the city's charter ordinance, that RNOs are notified about things that community planning and development is doing is huge. And I think that's, you know, the lifeblood of trying to, you know, keep getting information in neighborhoods. So thank you again. Is there any other?
Yeah. An affordable housing project done by Colorado Coalition for the Homeless in our neighborhood. That's going through a rezoning, and it would be really beneficial if you could see this.
You're a client of mine too, so come on, ask questions.
Great.
Oh, I want your contact.
Happy to give it to you.
And we'd love to, you know, have you back for, you know, another part 2. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Really
Great.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.